Hello, 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 hello. I'm just getting things set up and getting on a little early so that we can test technology. I know some wonky links went out, but I think I've got those corrected. We will see. But if you are here and in the chat, please say hello. Let me know that you can hear me and that things are going well from your end while the cat in my lap finds the most comfortable position possible. I'm super excited to be talking about this evening. This is a topic that I have been noodling on for quite a while. So, can hear now. Turned on my speaker and hit the unmute button. Yay! You know, technology. I swear, I am thankful that I am better at communicating and relationships than I am at technology because everything else will eventually work out. So, yeah, here we are. You want to see something fun? Here, come on. Oh, she's not going up high enough. Here, let's do it. High five, birds. Come on. Now she's not going to do it because, oh, there we go. Good kitty. That will not make it until the final edit. But those of you who are here early get to see. So, super duper excited about this. Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you how much the concept that I'm going to be talking about here tonight has made such a difference in my life, and how excited I am to share that with y'all. So, yeah. And I will get started officially in about 6 minutes or so. Give everyone a chance to get that 10-minute warning and get that starting now warning and get in here and get going. Also, between the last time some of you saw me and now, I traveled to Jamaica, which has been getting just smashed by Hurricane Melissa. And I am absolutely 100% thankful that I got a chance to go to Jamaica. And I am hoping that Jamaica is able to recover because I had a beautiful time there. Amazing, friendly people, gorgeous beaches and coves and whatever. So I've been sort of watching that saga, and it's a little terrifying and horrifying, for those people for whom it is, crushing their homes. So, hello, BB. Welcome. Welcome in. I will be officially starting in about 5 minutes. So, welcome to the pre show where I kind of ramble and give people a chance to get in here and, make sure that all the technology is working and that we are ready to go. Yeah. Hello, 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 all. Welcome. Please pop yourself into the channel and chat and say a little hello if you can. I'm getting a couple of things together so that I am on top of everything. There we go. I needed that. Put this right down here. Okay. Hello, Hot Wolf. Good to see you. Hello, Tobias. Lovely to see you as well. So excited to have y'all here. There we go. Fantastic. I think I am as ready for this workshop as I'm going to be. So we will see. I hope everybody is excited about learning about communication tonight. So, as we are getting ready to start this workshop this evening, answer me a question real quick. Where are you logging in from? Actually, two questions. Where are you logging in from? And is this your first Nookie workshop? Are you a virgin? So, where are you logging in from? And are you a Nookie virgin? So far, I know that several of you are not, because of course I recognize your names and you've been around for a while. But I'm really curious about those people who might be uh, hanging out with me for the first time this evening and checking all this out. Can you pretend it's your first? Oh, sure, you can always pretend. Role play, absolutely. Hello, Shane. Thank you. Uh, Durham and a virgin for Tobias. Woo, here we go. William is not a virgin from Lakeland, Florida. I know, Hot Wolf, I know you are not a virgin, and that you are in North Carolina with me. Sacramento, California, and first time. Fantastic. I love the first timers. You're in for a treat. I do try to make what I talk about entertaining as well as informative. So I hope by the end of the evening you are in agreement with me. That's Deborah. Oh, first time. Welcome, welcome. Tough crit. Raleigh, first time. Excellent. First timer here from New Orleans. I was just in NOLA this summer for Naughty in New Orleans, teaching there. My partner and I ate our way through the city. It was delightful, as it always is. Christy, Total Virgin, welcome, welcome. Pam, YouTube, have listened to many of your topics. Fabulous, fabulous. Lovely to hear it. I am so excited. Yeah. We'll get started in just a minute or so. Give people a couple more minutes to get wandered in here. Salt Lake City, first time. Jessica, welcome. Fantastic. I love having first timers here. And so I've written a book on communication that it's titled Understand Me Now, and That's an Order. So it's focusing on communication, especially in power exchange, kink, non-monogamous relationships. Because I had a conversation with somebody at one point who told me that relationships would be easy for me because I'm a dominant and I could just tell them to sit down and shut up. And this topic, the actions speak louder than words, or do they, is ultimately meant to be the next communication book that takes everything that I put into that book and sort of coalesces it in a different mental framework. So, yeah, this is, and I'm setting it up here for y'all, and I'm hoping that this conversation will be lively and that y'all will definitely feel free to talk back to me and ask me questions and have the conversations that help you understand all of this better. So, Northeast Ohio, not a Nookie virgin, but it has been a while. Excellent, Shane. Okay, let's get started. So, have you ever had one of those conversations. You know, the kind where you're trying to fix something and somehow 20 minutes later, you're both annoyed, exhausted, and questioning every life choice that has brought you to this moment, right? You started with love in your heart and I statements rolling off of your tongue, and now you're like, fine, forget it. Anyone? Because that is what this workshop is all about. We're about to dive into a workshop called Actions Speak Louder Than Words, or Do They? It's about how we miscommunicate, over communicate, and sometimes absolutely murder our relationships with talking. So, we've been told that good communication means finding the right words, the perfect tone, and just the right amount of I feel statements. But what if I told you, and you've probably heard this, that 90% of communication has nothing to do with words at all, right? You've probably heard that, right? 90% of communication is nonverbal. I wouldn't say it's necessarily nonverbal, but 90% of communication has nothing to do with those carefully chosen words that come out of your mouth. Coyote says, never go to bed angry only works if there's an off ramp to being angry. Mm. Mm. Here's the thing, that if you leave here, if you get bored in 10 minutes and you leave here with nothing other than this, I want you to understand this. We are always communicating. Always. Every gesture, every pause, every I'm fine. That means I'm absolutely not fine, but I don't want to fight about it again, right? Even your silence is saying something. So tonight, we're going to talk about, well, talking, and how sometimes what we do says way more than what we say. Shalimar says, understand me now, she says. Yeah, all I got to do is tell him to sit down and shut up, and my life is perfect. We're going to talk about the science and the sass of communication, from body language and tone to non-communication communication, which, spoiler alert, is still communication. And by the end, you'll understand what you cannot not communicate really means, and how to use that awareness to love, connect, and yes, occasionally argue more lovingly, more productively, and more effectively. With me? So I wrote back in 2019 that communication is not the most important part of a relationship. I wrote that. Oh, and boy, some people got big mad about that. I actually ended up writing a piece afterwards arguing that it was the most important part of a relationship. And I think both things could be true. But in the piece where I said communication is not the most important part of a relationship, I said that the most important thing in a relationship is appreciating your partner truly, deeply, fundamentally, wonderfully. Appreciating who they are as people. Appreciate what they do for you. Appreciating their character and drive. Appreciating their quirks and their foibles. Because without that appreciation, you're going to run into communication killers, those things that will make any conversation into an argument and any collaboration into a battle. Because you will communicate whether you mean to or not. You cannot not communicate. Oh, yes, you will communicate, but you'll be communicating how little you appreciate your partner. Ooh. Coyote says, danger flag. When you feel taken for granted, but not talking about it is still on you. So I talk about that sort of thing a lot when I talk about boundaries, right? So here's what you're going to get tonight. If you stick with me, my goal for you after this evening is you'll stop trying to talk your way out of problems you behaved your way into. Y'all know what I'm talking about there? Talking your way out of problems you behaved your way into. Mm. You'll learn how to use your tone. You'll learn how to use your timing and tiny everyday choices to communicate better than a 3-hour we have to talk ever could. By the end of this workshop, you'll know exactly how to tell the truth with your actions and how to spot when someone else's behavior is saying, I love you, or I am so tired of this nonsense, regardless of what their mouth is saying. That's my big promise. You're going to leave here knowing how to match your words and your actions so people can finally believe you and maybe fall a little more in love with you for it, and how to turn that around and have a better understanding of interpreting what other people are really saying to you. Are you with me on this? Ryan says, it's weird to be living in a timeline where a search for a Miss Nookie archive post now comes with an AI summary at the top. The world is very, very strange. It is moving quickly. So this whole idea, actions speak louder than words, it's kind of like watching a movie with the sound off. You can still tell what's going on, right? The eye rolls, the slamming doors, the dramatic storming out. You don't need subtitles for that. That's how relationships work too. Think about it. We are constantly subtitled by our behaviors. You can say, I'm listening. But if you're scrolling on your phone, crossing your arms, and sighing every 8 seconds, The subtitles are reading, I am so done with this. Or it's like this: your words are the trailer, but your actions are the whole movie. And if the two don't match, your partners will stop trusting the plot. So tonight, we're going to look at how to make your trailer match your movie so that what you say and what you do are finally telling the same story. Coyote, I am so glad that you're here and that you needed this today. Hey, Rob. Hey, sweetie pie. Uh, DD Delightful. That's what I need. How to understand what's being said between the lines. Yeah. Um, if you're watching this live, make sure you give the live stream a like or thumbs up. Thank you, Rob. I am terrible at saying things like that. But yeah, if you are on Facebook or YouTube watching this, please do thumbs up the live stream, all of that. Raleigh Biscuit Company made it from Raleigh. Hello, dear. Okay, so let's talk about the old way we've been taught to communicate. And in the one where we're told, like, use your words, right? And boy, so many of us just like took that advice and we have been running with it, right? So, scenario one, the word avalanche. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. The word avalanche. So, those of you who are perhaps a little neurospicy in the brain may recognize this and all of the greatest hits that you try to run out in a word avalanche in order to stop horrible things from potentially happening. You're upset, right? So you open your mouth and a word tsunami comes out. Every thought, every reason, and another thing that's been building in your head, in your anxiety, in your resentment, in your relationship for days, weeks, months. 5 minutes later, you've forgotten what you were even trying to say. And your partner looks like they just survived a scolding by their first grade teacher and needs snacks. What you want instead? You want to feel heard. You want to feel understood without exhausting you both in the process, right? And you don't even have to be upset for this to happen. You could be trying to explain something that's really important to you and you don't yet feel understood. So you explain it again in different language and again and again and again until your partner has glazed eyes and a stupid expression on their face, right? But you hope if you just explain it the right way, that will prevent bad things, trademark, from happening. Or as I wrote, and Coyote brought this up earlier, don't go to bed angry, right? So you try to word vomit enough words, trying to find the right perfect combination of words that's going to fix it before you go to bed, right? Hi says, I talk too much and partner doesn't talk, especially when tired or mad. Yeah. And so it's finding the balance for both of you, right? One of you needs to be able to express yourself. The other one needs to be able to process. How do you find that balance? Scenario number two, the silent treatment, also known as emotional dial-up internet. right? You're sitting there and you're like trying to get at them and they're just going, so silent treatment. They don't say nothing. Just sit there and you just broadcast your feelings telepathically through heavy sighs and door closing techniques and the classic, I'm fine, right? Translation, I am not fine. And if you don't know why, that's part of the problem, right? And what do you want instead? To feel understood without having to weaponize silence. Coyote says, ex-partner and I were both avalanche survivors, so we wound up walking on eggshells around each other and never talked. Yeah, and trauma plays a huge part in how we communicate or don't, right, as human beings. DD Delightful says, shelving a conversation can be the healthiest thing sometimes. Yes. Hi says, now we go to bed and figure it out after work the next day. See, now that is healthy and mature. Cool Gov says, the between the lines is my black hole. Yeah. Coyote says, there will be a point when people will not know what modems sound like. Today is not that day for a certain generation. Victoria, and if you don't know why, that's part of the problem. Yeah. So I saw something. I think it was on a Facebook group, and somebody said, oh, I said this thing, and this person just went silent, and I haven't heard from them since. And I don't even know what I said wrong. And a lot of people were there like, oh, well, did you ask? Did you do this? Did you do this? And I said, okay, but let's look at it another way. You're sitting here worried about how they rejected you, but why aren't you considering rejecting them? They are the type of person who thinks that you need to be able to either read their mind and know what's wrong, or they don't like you the way you are. Do you want that kind of relationship? Right? Cool Gov says, either say too much or go silent. You need a better way. Yeah. And if your partner was abused pre you, the blank stare and no talking, crunchy roll and chill out, or parallel play. Absolutely high. DD Delightful. It's never again date anyone who employs the silent treatment. Yeah. So then you've got scenario 3. You've got the communication Olympics. Like, communication is a competition and you are in it to win it. You've been reading books, you've been watching videos, you've been doing the use active listening things, but somehow every can we talk turns into an emotional UFC cage match, right? You want gold medal intimacy, but the event keeps ending in mutual disqualification. When what you're really looking for is ease and flow and the kind of communication that builds connection instead of competition, right? Oh, hi, you're Kate. Got it. I'll remember that. Curvy Girl says, I take a while to process my thoughts and then I speak. Same. A lot of the time. Yeah. Coyote says, lesson I was taught too late. I can't talk about it right now. Leaves the other person on hold and still does damage. So here's one of my favorite tips. I can't talk about this right now. Pause. How about you give me 2 hours and then we'll come back to it? How about we talk about it tomorrow night at dinner? How about we put a pin in this and talk about it when we get home from vacation and we're not exhausted? And whoever says, I can't talk about this now, is the person who is responsible for making sure it does get talked about so it doesn't become a relationship black hole. right? Scenario 4, the mixed signal marathon. You keep saying, I'm fine, but your tone, your face has subtitles, and your actions are screaming, I am not fine. You're trying to be kind because that's what you've been taught, but your body's doing interpretive dance for, I'm fucking annoyed. They're responding to what they see, what they are experiencing, not what you say. And suddenly you find yourself in an argument arguing about who's right instead of what's real. What do you want instead? Clarity and alignment between what comes out of your mouth and what all this is broadcasting, right? We've all done these things, every single one of us, right? It's exhausting, it's confusing, it's human. From here on in, though, it's about making your actions, your tone, your timing, and your choices work for you, not against you. So communication actually connects instead of combusts. Coyote says, yeah, but there's a statute of limitations. I never wanted to be that person who blows up without thinking things through. Absolutely. Love that. Clear expectations from CoolGov. Thank you. Ryan says, Nookie, that third tranche you mentioned reminds me a bit of a famous John Wooden quote. Never mistake activity for achievement. Ooh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, quick question. Let's get curious here for a second. I would like to know, when it comes to communication, what's your style? Are you the talk it to deather? The one who wants to process every single feeling until everyone in the room has a group degree in psychology? Hi. I have a PhD in talk it to deathing. Or maybe you're the silent stewer. You don't say anything, but your sighs are basically like Morse code for, I'm disappointed in your choices. Or how about the fix it faster? You don't want to talk about it, you just want it done so you can go back to cuddling and tacos, right? Or maybe you're a combo platter. You talk too much and say nothing at the same time, like Ryan was saying. Don't worry, that's an art form. So, what's your biggest communication struggle there? Talking too much, not enough, saying the wrong thing, saying the right thing, but at the wrong time? Share it in the chat if you feel comfortable. What's been your biggest, why did I say that? Or why didn't I just say that moment lately? So Victoria says, alignment of your words and your real thoughts. Yeah. Kate says, now there are things with partner I evaluate, is this chat worth cycling back to if they don't want to, but to be fair on. So the key is that I think a chat is always worth cycling back to, even if it's to cycle back and say, okay, we have not found a resolution. Let's put this to bed until one or the other of us finds another problem. Right? So it's not just letting it sort of taper off into, oh, we never have to think about that again. Right? You see what I'm saying? But you're saying, we're going to put this to bed. Mini Tubular says, how do you make that alignment between broadcasting and clarity if you don't know how you feel yet? That is an excellent question. Thank you so much. Here's what I do, because I often don't know exactly what's going on inside of me without some processing time. So I will say something along the lines to my sweetie, hey, this specific thing is making me feel a way. I don't know what it is or why I'm feeling this way. So can I come back to it later? But I want you to know that I'm putting a pin in it, right? So that I don't surprise them 2 days later by saying that thing 2 days ago really upset me. I've put a pin in it. And that way they have also had time to consider their experience of that, so that when I come talk to them, they've put a pin in their mind. It hasn't just slipped away into the detritus of a day that they don't even remember when I've been thinking about it for a while. Shalimar says, I'm an avalancher with a side note of silent. Vivian says, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. Cool Gov, just say how I feel and usually overshare. And that is absolutely a trauma response, right? Because we can say how we feel and then sit. But a lot of the times, what will happen is we'll say how we feel when we're younger, and somebody will tell us, will invalidate us, will tell us we don't have a right to feel that way, or that's dumb, or whatever. And then we feel a need to explain it. And so now we say how we feel and we overshare and explain in order to prevent that bad thing from happening. And we need to be able to like sit and be comfortable with that. Kate says, depends on who I'm talking to, a talker or oversharer. Shalimar says, I will let my person know when that silence is. Please let me think until I can talk like an adult. I love that. Vivian says, avalanche. Coyote says, I'm a true conversational switch. I operate well with both talkers and avoidance. A Lily, Lauren says, I overthink everything and want to talk it over and over and over. Fun fact, in a lot of my books, I tell the story about my partner and I and how we communicate. And there's this joke that we, have run between us. And he would say, why are you always such an overthinker? Or why do you always overthink things? And I'd say to him, why do you always overfeel things? And between the two of us, we actually make a whole human. So yay us. But it's interesting if you pause and think about how we end up with people, and that he loves my thinking, even when, or especially when it's driving him batty, and I love his feeling in the same way. Victoria, talker. I talk too much about everything. You talk maybe quite a bit, but is it too much? Or is it what you think you need to talk about because you're not getting the feedback that you need to feel validated? Rob says, I usually sit with thoughts and feelings for a bit, and then when I've sorted through the variety of thoughts, then I'll have a thorough conversation. I do tend to over-explain myself, though. Yeah, and I think one of the challenges with over-explaining, from my perspective as a habitual over-explainer, is that we can over-explain our partners into oblivion and into overwhelm. So it's ideal to be able to give them sort of a sketch and then give them time to get used to it, and then maybe come back and hit it again at another time. So we're not just bombarding them. Kate says, partner laughed at combo platter, so I am probably that. Hot Wolf says, I'm more of the steward. Jojo says, I want to talk about how I'm feeling, sometimes way too unfiltered and with someone not invested in me enough. Yeah. And so when we get the opportunity to talk, if we have been bottling up things, sometimes that will spew out all over everyone. That is, again, very human. However, this is one of the reasons I tell people that we need, as adults in general, more friendships. We need people we can count on to talk our feelings out to so that we don't do that on random strangers, right? DD Delightful says, in the past, I did not communicate well. I cut off, stay calm, or see party to my own hurt. Yeah. Lucky, how do you know if you're talking enough? How do you know if you're talking enough, or how do you know if you're talking too much? It's the same answer. It's, am I feeling understood in my relationship? And am I feeling like I am doing what is right? Because sometimes we can talk and we still won't be understood because the relationship is not a good fit, right? But, and this still happens to me. Sometimes I'll be talking, and I'll pause and I'll be like, I didn't need to say that. And I'll make a little note in my head. And I'll remind myself the next time. But we just have to keep practicing. Eventually, we find the sweet spot, and we find the partners who can handle us even when we're not in the sweet spot, but doing our best, because effort does matter. Leo Virgo cusp. I'm in my 60s and no longer feel the need to reserve things from others. Some might say no filter. And I would say if you have no filter, that's not necessarily a good thing. Because honestly, we have a tendency to dump all over the people that are closest to us in ways that we absolutely should not. We should be protecting them as much as we protect anybody because we love them. I'm not saying that's what you meant. I'm just putting that out there for this workshop. DD Delightful, my 2 recent partners helped me learn to communicate much better. Excellent. Listen better. Excellent. Let's see. Lily, yes, oversharing. Christy Hope, previously I've wanted to fix things immediately, which involved too much talking and not enough listening or hearing. Hi, soul sister. Now I've learned to take a step back to contemplate and then come back to address the issue in a more mature, productive manner. Love that. Ryan says, I'm a Texas Hold'em communicator in that I feel like it's beneficial to me to be the last to act or speak. Excuse me. DD Delightful says, talk out the gut reaction with a friend before bringing it to your partner. Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. Or sometimes just have a friend that you can say, hey, do you have 10 minutes for me to be an awful human for a while? So you can like lance the boil and get all the disrespectful things out of your system. And then you're ready to talk like a mature adult, right? Kate says, I'm trying not to chat so much and overshare. CoolGov says, so much of this applies to making connections as well. Oh, this applies to everything. Absolutely. Rob says, the tools of nonviolent communication help me a lot, getting to the root of what the feelings are and to ask for what I'm needing in the moment. Yes, and NVC and every other communication framework out there can be used malevolently. So understand that use things as much as possible to help yourself. Do not use these things to beat other people over the head when they're not doing it right. Not that you would, throwing this out there again, in general for the workshop. CoolGov says, I do all these things in work life, yet in personal, I struggle. And that is often a factor of whether or not, how invested in and in touch with your feelings you are. So let's move forward. Why me? So some of you are new to all of this with me. So let me tell you a little bit about me. Hi, I'm the Reverend Heather, also known as Nookie. I'm a licensed unicorn quester, and I'm a weirdo. I'm an overthinker. I'm ADHD, RSD, EDD, you name it. I've lived an atypical life. I've hitchhiked across the country. I've worked in a carnival. I've learned from seduction experts, hypnotists, tantra masters, and pickup artists. I've roamed New York City with street people. I've explored and taught alternative lifestyles for over a decade. I have built and moderated adult communities. I'm kinky. I'm non monogamous. And I mentor good hearted humans like you to create the love life you actually want. So, why should you trust me to talk to you about communication? Well, because I've been in an abusive marriage. I've been in the wrong relationships. I've been in the endless cycles of drama and regret. And I've clawed my way out by learning, testing, and teaching everything I could about love, sex, romance, kink, and how we communicate. For over 15 years, I've been in the trenches, writing, teaching, and working with people who wanted more from their life and their love than the vanilla status quo. I've watched them transform when they stopped swallowing their truth, stopped settling, and started living with courage. And I don't just teach communication, I live it every single day. The principles I'm sharing with you tonight are exactly what keep my own love life bold, adventurous, and deeply connected through communication. And anybody that's in this chat who has in person see my partner and I together can tell you it is instantaneously obvious how deeply in love we are, even after more than 12 years. So that is why me, because I'm not just telling you about communication, I'm living it as an example. And of course, everything I'm going to tell you tonight is yours to do with as you choose, right? You can take it or leave it. My goal is for you to do what works. Ray says, I tend to stew on things and make them bigger in my head than they needed to be, and finally word vomit on people. Yeah. Lily says, you are my kind of weird. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. Coyote says, because you have a life well lived with lessons learned and learned how to laugh and roll with it. Thank you. So before we keep going, I want to take just a minute to let you know something important. Everything I'm teaching tonight, everything I've started, everything I'm going to continue with is just the beginning. If you want to become better at communicating and being the person who you want to communicate with every action and word, you'll want more. That's why I created this studio. It's where the replay of this workshop will live, along with a ton of other workshops to help you actually be the person you want to communicate to your partners. Things like boundaries that stick, navigating non-monogamy, especially without the drama, better sex conversations, and more. So I put a link into the chat. So if you're listening tonight, keep this in the back of your mind. This doesn't have to be one and done. The studio is a place to come back, to rewatch, to keep learning, and to connect with people who are also done with vanilla relationships and settling. And Friday, I'm going to be interviewing the first episode of my new podcast, Hofessionals, and I'm going to have Lee Harrington on talking about the idea of building your self relationships. And I'm super excited about that because those episodes are actually going to go up into the studio long before the podcast episodes are available. So, yeah. So now let's shift back into tonight's focus, communicating our whole selves. Ryan says, having had the pleasure of being in the company of Nookie and her partner, they are indeed in love in a way that I hope to be again one day. Thank you. So now that we've laughed at ourselves a little, let's actually understand what's going on when we talk or when we don't. Because communication isn't just what comes out of your mouth, it's everything that you do. We're gonna go back to one of my favorite truths. I've already mentioned it once. You cannot not communicate. Paul Watzlawick says this, and he was well known for his work in communications theory. You cannot not communicate. Even when you're silent, even when you walk away, even when you text K, everything we do, tone, posture, timing, emoji choice, everything says something. And the wild thing, the other person is always translating it, whether you meant it or not. So if we can't not communicate, we might as well get good at it. Right? Kate says, ironically, these classes in Kink Life are helping with vanilla life. These classes are amazing. Thank you. So, quick question. I'm going to take a couple of sips of my tea and I'm going to pose this to you, and please answer it in the chat. Who is responsible for communication? Who is responsible for communication? Coyote says both of you. Lucky says both parties. Are we going to have a consensus here? It's a two-way street for sure. Everyone, Mini Tubular says. All parties involved are responsible for communication, says Lauren. Kate says, everyone, but how you deal with it is on you or me. Ooh, I like that. So, spoiler, both of you. Senders have to make sure the message is understandable. And receivers have to make sure they're actually, receiving it. But the only person you can actually control is you. So instead of, they're not listening, try, how can I make what I'm saying easier to understand? Or am I creating the right conditions for this conversation? And yes, that includes timing. Talking about emotional intimacy while your partner is halfway through a burrito or a boss battle is not a good communication strategy, right? Cool Gov says, a thing I work on all the time these days is matching my body language with my feelings. Yeah. I'm notorious for body facial language not matching my feelings. That usually happens when one of two things is happening. One, you're trying to say the thing you're supposed to say and not the thing you really want to say. Or two, you don't really know what you're saying and what you want to say, but you're saying it anyway in order to fill the silence. So we're going to talk about 5 types of communication. 5 big ones. 1, verbal. The words that come out of our pie holes, right? Written, texts, emails, the words that come out of my fingertips. Right? All words. Nonverbal, body language, tone, subtitles, or facial expression. Yeah. Kate says, my face to my words is my issue. Yeah. Listening. Listening is a form of communication. In fact, it's one of the most neglected ones, right? Because when we truly listen, we are communicating that we give a shit. And then visual, the stuff that we show, pictures we send, symbols we carve into our bodies, that I wore this outfit on purpose look, right? And without any hints, I bet you can guess which of those most people focus almost 100% of their energy on, right? The verbal and the written, the words. Meanwhile, your tone and your eyebrows and your smirk are out here freelancing without permission, right? Filling in the communication gaps helpfully for you in ways that you have no control over. So, we're going to talk real quick. And I'm giving you all of this information. I'm going to go through some information fairly quickly here. And I'm going to give this all to you so you have the frameworks in your mind. There's not going to be a quiz. Although when I post this replay into the studio, there will be workbook questions for you to test your knowledge and make sure you've got it. But there won't be a quiz. This is more like I'm giving you language so that your brain, as it processes the information I give you, has ways to give it a framework, to explain it to itself, to understand it more carefully. So, the 8 elements of communication. Think of communication like an ecosystem, and every part matters. So, you've got your sender, right? That's you. That's the one trying to get a message across. And then you've got the idea, the thing that you're trying to communicate, a thought, a need, a feeling, a boundary, right? And then encoding that. So you're turning your idea into something the other person can receive. Words, gestures, tone, memes, gifts. Some people have an amazing gift game, whatever. 4, you've got your timing. When you choose to say something. 10 out of 10 would not recommend starting serious conversations during sexy time or before coffee. That's actually a big one in my household. I'll be up for hours and my sweetie will just be getting up and I'll be like, hey, baby, did you think? And he's like, not now. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'll set an alarm for like an hour from now. Because if I want him to be able to listen and to properly care, I'm going to do it after he's had his morning mocha, right? Simple. Then there's how do you send this information? Face to face? Are you speaking it out loud? Are you texting? Are you calling? Are you sending it by carrier pigeon? Right? What is the channel that you're using? And then who is the receiver? Who is the person meant to understand what is being communicated? And then how do they decode it? How do they translate it? Pro tip, they will always translate it through their own experiences, not through your intentions. And to make that either more fair or less fair, you'll do the same thing to them. It's how it works. And then number 8 is feedback. What happens next? How do you check that your message landed in the way that you meant it? Because if the receiver misunderstood what you meant, by definition, communication did not happen. Coyote, are you allowed to have silly conversations during sexy times? I absolutely encourage that. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool Gov, she said she did a thing. I said nothing. She then said, you look so sad. Inside, I was so happy for her. So that is obviously a miscommunication, right? And if you know that your face is resting bitchily, that is something that you might need to then speak about more instead of allowing your countenance to be misconstrued, right? Curvy girl, I use halt, no deep discussions if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Ooh, I like that. That's lovely. Halt. So let's talk about non-communication communication. So I think if we're all being honest, we can agree that sometimes the loudest thing in a relationship is the thing that nobody says. Silence, sarcasm, ignoring somebody, ghosting, passive aggressive memes, all communication. And usually not the good kind, right? When you walk away mid conversation, when you forget to reply, when you post a quote on social media that is obviously about them, you're saying something loudly. If we pause to learn and to notice what we're communicating in those moments and take responsibility for it, we can start fixing the disconnect before it becomes damage. Cool Gov says, and that, dearie, actually is what I'm working on. Excellent. Kate says, I can't wait for you to go over resting bitch face. So, a big part of resting bitch face is not wearing your feelings or your emotions on your sleeve, right? Like, if you're happy, you're happy. But oftentimes, a neutral face will look neutral. And most people interpret that negatively. If you're not smiling, you're mad. For those people who tend towards resting bitch face, the best solution is always to have something to say. And also to be very clear with whomever you're with that a neutral face for you is not a bad face, right? And that can take some getting used to for everybody, which is why all of these things matter. And we're getting real close to the heart of everything that I'm going to teach you tonight. And then we're going to talk a little bit. So, let's talk real quick about what makes communication toxic. Because I think this is important as well. There are five big culprits. One, blaming. Classic defense mechanism. Also, mood killer. Two, defensiveness. If you're already loading your counterpoint before they finish their sentence, you're not listening. And that's communicating. Remember, what is that communicating? That's communicating that you don't give a shit. 3, contempt. The eye roll Olympics. Snark, sarcasm, dismissal, stonewalling. When you just shut down completely. And yeah, avoidance is a communication style, right? And then passive aggressive. Passive aggression can include sarcasm as well. Just kidding. Weaponized politeness. I mean, who am I joking? You know who you are. We know who we are when we're doing it. All of these things create toxicity in communication and create emotional static, which brings us to noise. Let's see. So Coyote says, I have unfinished business with my quasi ex because I chose not to express my anxiety until it was too late. And I can't tell you how many times I hear that story, right? Cool Gov says, I always mention it now and try to smile more. Now, here's the thing. I don't necessarily want people to smile more if they don't feel like smiling. But if you do feel like smiling, I would absolutely love you to get in the habit of smiling when you feel like smiling. Because the mind body feedback loop, when we are exhibiting our emotions and being emotional, leads to deeper authenticity and better understanding of ourselves. There's science behind it. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but there is. And Cool Gov, you and I can talk about that more if you have an interest in that. Coyote, that is me. I am the Great Wall of China, stony on the outside, fragile on the inside. Oh, yeah. So many people have that exact experience. So let's talk about noise. What is noise when we're talking about communication? Noise is anything that gets between your message and how it's received. Sometimes it's physical, like an actual bad connection, a loud music speaker going on right over here, and I can't hear whatever is being said. I'm half deaf. A crying baby. Physical noise getting in the way of communication. Sometimes it's psychological stress, assumptions, internal monologue that says, oh, they always do this, right? Psychological. Sometimes it's semantic, using words that mean different things to each of you. We had this conversation in Jamaica where one guy says, okay, how many is a few? And somebody said 3. And somebody else said up to 12. Like, few. Also, pro tip, soon is not a universal time unit. Right? Semantics. Sometimes it's cultural. Cultural noise. What is polite in one world is rude in another. Noise in communication distorts meaning. And when meaning gets distorted, relationships get messy. So, effective communication isn't necessarily about talking more. It's about clearing the noise so your truth can actually land. Does that make sense? So, quick recap. You're always communicating, whether you mean to or not. You can only control your side of the message, but you can do your best to combat noise. Words are a teensy tiny little slice of the pie. Teeny beeny. Silence counts. Noise kills clarity. Ha! Kate. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing. Okay. So Kate says garbanzo beans versus chickpeas. Argument that wasn't mine lasted 6 years. What's the difference? A friend of mine told me this. What's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea? I've never had a garbanzo bean pee on my face. But ching. Yeah. I'll be here for at least another 5 or 10 minutes. What was hummus made from was the argument. Yeah. But hummus can be made from so many things, right? It can be made from all sorts of beans. But all that said, let's take a quick breath together. So we've covered a lot already, from you cannot not communicate all the way to noise is the enemy of connection. So I'd love to hear from you. What has been most useful so far? What one thing so far has been most useful? Was it realizing how much you don't control in a conversation? Is it finally understanding why I'm fine is not an actual communication strategy? Or maybe that whole noise thing, like with Kate and the 6-year argument that wasn't hers, right? Share it in the chat or just shout it out. What's standing out for you right now? What's the one thing making you rethink how you show up in your conversations, your texts, or late night, we need to talk moments? And if your answer is, I'm fine, I'm going to ask you to explain that. Cool, Gov. Try the prime rib and tip your waitress. Exactly. Coyote, I have to pick one thing. Just one for the chat. Kate says, your take on resting bitch face. I need to process. Yeah. Ryan says, ugh, they're always driving through a tunnel right when we're having the conversation when they're breaking up with me. Victoria, Miss Nookie, I really hope this video goes viral. Many more people in the world need this knowledge. Thank you. Pam says, types and elements of communication. Lucky, saying I'm fine, feeling safe. Coyote, I think if I had to narrow it down to one thing, is that my partner not communicating is not my fault after all. No, it's not. The only thing you can control is yourself, and that imperfectly. Absolutely. Sabrina says the elements are an awesome framework. Thank you. Goose says the noise part. Sometimes I think just because I say it and I understand what I'm saying doesn't mean my partner does. Yeah, it's true. Lauren says, when I say I'm fine, it isn't fine. But when I say no problem, I really mean no problem. So I also wrote way back when someone says to me, I'm fine, I'm going to treat them, regardless of all the input that I am getting from them, I'm going to treat them like they are telling me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I'm going to say, okay, great. Then we'll just continue on with whatever we were doing. And if you decide that, you're not fine for whatever reason, I'm here for you, right? Because sometimes saying I'm fine or nothing is wrong is meaning I can't talk about this right now, but I don't have the language or the history that allows me to set that boundary, right? And I think that that's important, is when somebody says, nothing, what's wrong? Nothing. That means nothing I can talk about right now, nothing that I can put my finger on, nothing to do with you. And I'm okay with that, right? As long as overall, and we're going to get to be talking about this here in just a few, as long as overall our relationship is good, I'm okay taking their words as truth. I think that's key. Cool, Gov. I'd simply think of what you're putting out in the other person's shoes. Absolutely. Kate says that I'm not alone or unique in my issues. Victoria, feeling insecure, neurotic, emotional. Fine. Yes, absolutely. Nina says, I very much communicate how I listen efficiently versus how we are societally taught so that they don't think I'm not listening. Communication is always ongoing. Things change. 100%. Shalimar says, from Dan and Dawn, take me at my word. This is a big thing between me and my long-term partner. Take me at my word. I will never purposefully lie to you. And sometimes my words might set boundaries that I can't set another way. Believe me and let me process, Shalimar says, I'll come back to it. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that in here. So, we've talked tonight about tone, about timing, about intention, about body language. And that feels like a lot. When we are in the moment, we're like, I have something to say, and I got to think about all, these 5 ways of communicating and these 8 structures. And then there's noise and all of these things and all the ways that we try to say what's in our hearts without always having the words. And that brings me to something I wrote years ago. I think it was in 2014, back when I was trying to figure out how to tell my partner that I'm still deeply in love with what I felt. And realizing that sorry, y'all, I'm getting a little verklempt here. A woman who bought myself the complete Oxford English Dictionary at the age of 14 for my birthday, could not come up with the words. And I'm going to share this with you because this is what I am sharing with you. This is what I'm giving to you to bring all of this information that I've given you together into one solid concept. So pardon me if I get just a little emotional because this still hits. Like writing this was a thing for me back then. And even now, just thinking about how many years we've been through and, how much he means to me and, all of the things that I've done with this and since this gets a little. So I cannot think of a single word or a series of words, no matter how long, that will convey everything I have inside of my heart and my head for you, except one. Our entire existence, from the moment we met, that is how I tell you all that I want to say. My every look, my every action, from that single moment until the end of the future. My words and my actions for you. That is my definition of love. My definition of adore when it comes to you. I hope it's enough. So, as I said, that piece still gets me because it's the reminder I often need most with my ADHD, with my absent-mindedness, with a million different things going on, with life coming in and, routines being, followed through and routines being fucked up and so on and so forth. I need to be reminded. I need to remember every single day that sometimes the clearest, most powerful communication isn't verbal at all. It's what we do. It's how we show up. It's the choices we make when no one is looking. And it's the consistency over time, from the moment we met until the end of the future, that tells our truth when our words can't quite keep up. So yeah, words matter. But when it comes to communicating in relationships, our lives are the love letter. And when you start to think about communication as less the words that I say and more the way that I behave with them and around them and for them every single moment of every single day, communication communication takes on a whole new meaning. Every butt pat, every flirt, every hop onto the bed and snuggle up next to them and kiss them awake in the morning. Every single thing, which is why when the communication with the words has to happen, you have days and weeks and months of all of this other communication in between. And that, when you haven't been trying to communicate at all, when you have been trying, in some cases, to not communicate, is when you are communicating the most. And if you think about how you feel when others do all of the little tiny things for you throughout the day, and how those all add up to either having a conversation with words or not needing a conversation with words, you're going to see exactly what I mean. Right? So, here's your homework. And don't worry, it's not graded. For the next 20 blah, blah, blah. For the next 24 hours, I would like you to say less and notice more. That's it. No big speeches, no over explaining, no, just to clarify. Instead, pay attention to what your actions and your behaviors are communicating. Are you saying, I'm listening, or I'm on my phone pretending to care? Are they saying, I care, or I'm too tired to deal with this? And when you catch yourself wanting to feel and I'm getting my tongue, I'm apparently getting a little tired. When you catch yourself wanting to fill silence with words, just pause. Take a breath. Let your presence do the talking for a second. Then, if you want extra credit, tell someone, maybe someone in the studio, what you noticed. And practice it. Because awareness without practice is just trivia. So for the next full day, I dare you, talk less, show more. Let your behavior finish the sentence. Because your actions, whether you wanted them to or not, have been speaking all along. Nina says, emotional boundaries are important. I will share things only if they consent to the weight and subject. Trauma dumping can impact relationships. Absolutely, which is one of the reasons that when I was talking about, friends, and I said, somebody that you can call up and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes, putting a time frame on it, to listen to me be an asshole? Right? Because sometimes you need to be able to speak those things. Right? Or, hey, baby, I would like to talk sometime in the next couple of days about this thing. Let's put a pin in it, right? The challenge with that, and I'm going to be very clear, the challenge with that is that people who are used to can we talk becoming that UFC cage match, right, will likely react from trauma to something like that. But once you get to the point of being able to trust each other and communicate well with each other, and you have a long history of communicating lovingly day by day, you'll find that putting a pin in things like that becomes so much easier and so much more effective. So, before we wrap, first, I want to thank you. Not just for logging in, I do this every time, but for showing up. You could have spent tonight scrolling on social media, getting mad at strangers on the internet, or reading yet another article about 10 phrases to fix your relationship instantly. But instead, you came here to learn how to do better, not just to talk better. You're looking at how your tone and your timing and your silence and your choices communicate love or frustration or desire, fear. And you decided to take responsibility for that. And that says something. And I want to help you keep that momentum going. The replay of Actions Speak Louder Than Words, or do they, will live inside the studio, along with an audio summary, a reflection workbook, and a whole library of other workshops that keep building on what we are doing tonight. We're talking better communication, clearer boundaries, hotter sex, fewer misunderstandings, more laughter, and relationships, monogamous, non-monogamous, kinky, casual, or committed, that actually work. The studio is where we keep practicing what we preach. It's where we stop saying, I'll try, and start doing the work together. Because communication isn't built on words, it's built on consistency. And that's exactly what the studio gives you: consistent support, education, and community, so you can live what you learned tonight. I've put the link into the chat. Because love isn't proven by what you say. It's shown by what you do, moment by moment, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, over time. So come practice the doing part with us. We would love to have you. You see, knowing how to communicate and actually doing it, especially under stress, are two very different skills, right? And if you really want to build love and connection and trust that lasts, you're going to need to practice. You're going to need feedback, and you're going to need a plan. Now, all of this you can help build in the studio, or it's exactly what I do with my one-on-one clients as well, my private clients. We don't do scripts. We don't do communication hacks. We build the actual skills. We look at where your actions line up with your words and where they don't. We practice real conversations, real boundaries, and real ways to say what you mean without killing the vibe or the connection. And if that sounds like the next step that you've been needing, I'm offering a free 15-minute big ask consultation. I put that link in the chat. We'll look at one big ask question in your life. Maybe something you've been avoiding saying or a pattern you finally want to break, and we're going to work through it together. No pressure, no hard sell. You either feel the fit or you don't. But if you're ready to stop letting miscommunication run your love life, this is one place to start. Ryan says, quick side question. Is the Hofessional sign-up link ready for prime time? Yes. Yes, it is. We've actually got some Hofessionals signing up, so yay. Cool Gov, this is true. You know it. See, here's the thing. If you're sitting here thinking, yeah, all of this sounds great, the studio, the one-on-one, whatever, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet, that hesitation, that's exactly, I don't even know what that is. What's going on there? That's awesome. That hesitation, that is exactly what you communicate to others. You don't have to be ready. You just have to take the rep. Cool Gov says, did the big ask and now a client, unsolicited. Thank you, dear. I appreciate that. Kate, what is a Hofessional? Hofessional is somebody who works in love, sex, and romance. And I'm doing a podcast interview series with them about each one of them, the one thing they wish everybody knew about what it is they do. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. And like I said, the recordings, I'm starting the first recording on Friday. I've got Lee Harrington for that. And then I've got Shannon, the sex coach, signed up. I don't remember what date, but I'll get that into the calendar. And then I've got a life coach who's a fantastic human, who you probably won't recognize the name, but they're going to be an amazing chat. And then a couple of other people sort of already lined up for the rest of the year. And then in January, that podcast will launch. So yeah. Ooh, very excited about that. That's going to be a fun podcast. I'm going to have a great time, talking to people about their pulpit topics, their soapbox topics, their pet peeves when it comes to love, sex, and romance. So, yeah. Kate says, I'm ready for the studio, emotionally, financially, but tax time. Yes, and tax time is coming soon. Woohoo! Nina says, thank you for presenting. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being my audience. Thank you for bringing your thoughts and your opinions and your questions and your ideas, because you engaging with me gives me more. It fills me up. And I absolutely adore it, which is one of the reasons that I love doing these presentations so much live, is because then I get to engage with y'all. So, Rob, thank you. Big hugs, much butt wiggles to you. Kate says, I'm not that kind of professional, but wish more people would see folks as normal working folks. Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you enjoyed this, please do let everybody know. I'll post a little note on the FetLife event tomorrow, sort of saying, thank you all for joining me. And, if you're willing to share what you are taking away, that would be wonderful. But also, if you're doing your homework and you want to post about it on Fet and you want to tag me, I'm Nookie Notes on Fet. And I'd love to see, the homework that you're doing and, what you're pulling out of this. Next month, I don't yet have the topics, but I'll probably do only one next month. I'm hoping to get somebody that I recently met, Dr. Bing, to talk about sexual wellness and health. That's what I'm hoping. We're going to cross our fingers. So cross your fingers with me. please, let's get Dr. Bing to come on and talk about sexual wellness and health, because I think it's an important topic. And I've got a lot to say on the topic, and he's got a lot more to say on that topic. So, yay. We cannot save the chat, Coyote, but I do upload the chat transcript into the resources for every replay. So, Ash, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful evening. My sweetie has just gotten home a few minutes ago, and I am going to go snuggle him up and get some sleep because I'm past my bedtime. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all. I love you all for coming. I love you all for doing this for yourself. Really, I do. And if you have any questions or whatever, just reach out to me. I'm around.